Hey, what's happening, YouTubers? We're back with a brand new action figure review, and today we're going to take a look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Bane MegaFigure. Now, after checking the polls, Bane won the poll for the next review to be posted, and I like what first name, last name asked. He said, is it too much to post both figures in one review? I don't mind it, but for this one, I typically want to keep this just solo, just because it's a mega figure and it's one I've been looking forward to, especially since that collect to build one from the Last Night on Earth was a huge disappointment. But without further ado, like we always do with our reviews, y'all, let's get started with the box art first. So it's your standard mega figure box art that you typically see, which means you get a lot of plastic. And just to compare, like with a regular DC Multiverse box, here's the one that was in the polls. By the way, thanks to everyone that voted in the polls for which one you want to see next. Don't worry, Black Adam with the cloak's going to be next after this, but just the comparison in boxes, like this thing's huge. But it's like your other DC Multiverse figures, boxes. You see Bane on the side, DC Multiverse logo on the top, McFarlane Toys logo on the bottom, and man, this just looks so plain because usually what you would see is like where this is from, like Black Adam from the Black Adam movie. It just says Bane. It just looks so empty. Now, I believe this isn't any specific rendition of Bane. It's just a comic version of Bane, which I appreciate. It's not like that Last Night on Earth one, but there you see the artwork of Bane. And it says DC Multiverse, and then on the side, see that, and whatever. Without further ado, let's get this big-ass figure out of the box. Here's Bane out of the box, and I didn't do any of that sped-up unboxing that I've done recently with all my reviews, because I keep effing up my finger with the X-Acto knife, so that's probably going to be put to a halt for a while. But here's Bane out of the box. He doesn't come with jack squat in terms of accessories apart from the trading card and the base plate. So same DC base plate you're used to seeing. And then also the trading card, which it has the image of Bane like we saw earlier on the box. I think this looks pretty dope. And then on the back is a data file on Bane. Feel free to pause it if you want to go ahead and read it. All right, now let's take a look at the figure itself. We're going to get started with the head sculpt first. And I gotta say, this thing looks sick. Like, I love the texturing on his mask and the tubes that are inserted into his head. Like, that's insane. And if we look in closely here, you can see even the sculpting of it being attached to his head like that. That's a nice attention to detail. So, man, bravo on McFarlane Toys' part for that. I think it just looks dope overall. I kind of wish, though, that these tubes had that same... I can't really see it in the trading card here because it's kind of cut off. Had the same logos on it. That would have been really nice to have that on there. But it's still pretty cool nonetheless. But man, that looks sick. And then we'll take a look at the rest of the figure. I mean, when it comes to Bane, he has a pretty simplistic design in terms of how he looks. But I do like this. Now, the thing, though, the strap right here, it's glued on to the torso. It's like loose up in the top here. But it would have been nice to have this be removable. But when we look closely, I do like the attention to detail and the sculpting for the straps. You can see the clip right there, and his pouches are also sculpted different. Like, the texture is different compared to what, is on the rest of the body, but you can kind of see it. Like, I've always said this before in my reviews, like, it's something about the way they sculpt certain things and texture that they make it look like it's not like almost soft goods, but that looks like something you'd see. Like it looks like an actual strap on there. So I think they did an amazing job sculpting his straps. It would have been cool, like I said, if they were removable, but it goes all the way throughout the back and holds up his tank right here. The only thing is I'm not sure if it's just mine, but it looks like it's a little crooked right there. But yeah, overall, I do like the sculpting of the straps. It just would have been cool to remove it just because underneath you can see he has like his tank top. And it would have been cool to just have just a plain, like actual plain look, but it still looks pretty nice overall. I really like the nice attention to detail on his arms, like the veins sticking out. Like, that's awesome to see. But what would have been cool, I'm sure customizers out there will try it, if he had a little bit of green on those veins, just so you can see the venom coursing through his body. Like, that would have been even cooler, but it still looks good nonetheless. Now, I also wanted to point this out as well. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be like this, or it could just be the glue came loose on mine, but when I was taking this out of the box and kind of like posing his arm, it like came up right here. I don't want to push it too much just in case this part rips off, but I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be, but I'll check out some other reviewers as well, see if they had that issue. Then take a look at the rest. You see his pants right there, has little pouches, and his boots. And here's the thing I like the best about this figure. It has the same thing like I mentioned when I reviewed Black Adam, the movie version. It's using hinges and pegs, so there's no ball joints on there, which is awesome. I really wish they would start implementing this more and more throughout their line, because it's kind of like what Marvel Legends does with the hinges. I prefer this method as opposed to the ball joints, but like I mentioned earlier too, they are getting better with designing and sculpting those ball joints, but man, that looks so awesome. I wish he would have come with a pair of fists, though, instead of just open hands, but awesome. There's no ball joints. And then also on the boots, there's no ball joints as well. It's just one consistent sculpt, and it still even has, I'm going to go through articulation, but just to showcase, it still even has a ankle articulation and pivot. Like, that's awesome to see, especially on a MegaFig nonetheless. When it comes to articulation, it's going to be kind of limited, I'll be honest with you, just because it's a MegaFig and you see the sculpting of him. He doesn't even have double joint elbows, but we'll see how far it can get. It does have its head that can tilt from side to side. This is my problem, though, with some figures, though, from McFarlane Toys, is sometimes, like, the peg or the way it's sculpted on there, it's too tight. You can hear it squeaking when I turn the head. And sometimes that worries me because I don't want it to snap or anything like that, but it does have, like, he could still turn his head pretty decent amount. In terms of looking up, not really. You can definitely look down a little bit, but that's about as much movement you'll get on the head. And then in terms of the arms, there is the shoulder joint right there. There isn't a bicep swivel, and like I mentioned, single jointed elbows, so that is about as far as you'll get. So barely 90 degrees. A little disappointing. I was hoping he'd get a little bit more, considering there's no double jointed elbows. And as I mentioned earlier, there is a wrist cut, like a wrist swivel, and a hinge. Now we're looking at the torso articulation. You can see there's no diaphragm cut, but there is a ball joint at the hip, so he can get a nice range going around. Looks like he's hula hooping. And then in terms of how far back he can go, about that. And then in terms of forward, still not too much. I wish they would improve the forward articulation in terms of the torso. And then when it comes to the leg articulation, because it's using that rubber piece in the middle, his legs do go up pretty high amount like that. That's not bad. And there are double jointed knees, and that's a pretty good range for Bane, actually. Double jointed knees, and then he also has the ankle articulation and the toe articulation as well. And of course, like I showcased earlier, ankle pivot. In terms of the thigh articulation, let's see. That's actually not bad. That's a good range, so not really much needed for a thigh cut, but still pretty good. All right, now we're going to jump right into size comparisons. And first size comparison, here's Bane standing next to a couple of Batman figures who he's going to break the back of. If you know, you know. Anyways, we have the Action Comics 1000 Blue Variant Batman and the Batman Year 2, a very controversial one, but if you saw my top 5 list, he was on my honorable mention. If you haven't checked it out yet, feel free to check it out. And next size comparison, here's Bane sitting next to a couple McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse collect-to-build figures. We have the first ever collect-to-build figure, the Merciless, and then the latest one I just picked up, which was the Frost King. And I kind of wanted to discuss something real quick. I saw some people in the community saying, like, this isn't worth the MegaFigure status because it's, not that big of a MegaFigure like Clayface or Titan Joker. When you actually look at this, like looking at size comparisons, in terms of collect-to-build figures, he's almost the same size or even bigger. So at the $40 to $50 price point, this isn't that bad considering when you compare it to like these figures that you had to get in a wave, which I think total to $100. I think it is worth it in terms of the MegaFigure status. That's just my opinion, though. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. And also, I did want to mention, for this being the first collect-to-build figure, I think this thing is highly underrated. And next size comparison, here's Bane sitting next to a couple live-action DC Multiverse figures. We have Black Adam from the Black Adam movie, which I reviewed recently as well. Feel free to check that out. And then we have the only other MegaFigure I have in my collection right now, the Zack Snyder Justice League Darkseid. And man, when you look at this Darkseid, I didn't realize how freaking tall he actually is. And next size comparison here is sitting next to more DC Multiverse figures. We have Lobo and the Batman 3 Jokers Batman. And next size comparison, here's Bane sitting next to a couple Hasbro Marvel Legends figures in like the deluxe form. We have the Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary Hulk and the Marvel Legends 80th Anniversary Juggernaut. Both were part of 2 packs, one with Wolverine, the other with Colossus. But just for kind of size comparisons, to see like these hulking, characters. Who do you think would win in this triple threat? The Incredible Hulk, Bane, or Juggernaut? Let me know in the comments below. Alright, some overall thoughts on the figures. I like it. It's really good, but it's not without its faults. For example, the arms, I wish it had a little bit more range of motion, specifically the elbows, just because I get you can't be double jointed, especially this size of a figure, but I just wish they could have had the articulation have a little bit more range because it's barely getting 90 degrees or not even getting it at all. The second thing is I do wish it came with additional hand sculpts because as much as I appreciate these, I would have wanted fisted hands as well. Now, for the positives, there's a lot to talk about. One, of course, the sculpt. Like you always hear in my McFarlane Toys reviews, the sculpts are good. However, it is really good on this figure. The texturing of his mask is impressive. I do like the sculpting of the veins on the arms and in the chest. I just wish the strap was removable though, just because we can get more of a classic look, but it still looks good nonetheless. And then I want to talk about the no ball joints on the wrists. We have hinges on there and like a peg essentially, and it's because of that I wish we would have gotten additional hand sculpts because that would have been the complete thing if we got fisted hands. And next thing I want to talk about is also the ankles. There's no ankle ball joints. It's just kind of one consistent piece. You still get ankle articulation, kind of like what you would see on Marvel Legends. So I like that a lot. And in addition to that, this was a much needed Bane figure in the line, considering that first one we got in the collective build wave from the Last Night on Earth was total ass. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be disrespectful, but that figure sucked. Because it had a lot of QC issues, especially the legs, didn't have that much range of motion, so this was a much needed improvement. In my opinion, McFarlane Toys knocked it out of the park with this. Apart from the flaws that I mentioned, it's still a really good figure overall. But yeah, sound off in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this figure, y'all. Are you going to be picking it up? And if you are looking to pick it up, like I mentioned, McFarlane Toys website does have it in stock. Just the shipping might be a little too high, like a $10, $12 price point, depending where you live. But yeah, sound off in the comments below, YouTubers. And like always, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.